This is Weight Loss Wednesday. He lost 70 pounds in a year, helped hundreds reach their weight loss goals, and he's here every Wednesday with tips and guests to help you. Here's your host, Brett Mason.
We are Prodigy.
Well, welcome into our first ever Weight Loss Wednesday podcast. My name is Brett Mason, and I am so happy that you took the time to listen. These podcasts will probably typically be pretty short, so it won't take up a lot of your time. And I think probably going to try to just stick to one tiny targeted subject per podcast rather than get into a whole host of subjects. That way you can get a little nugget of wisdom, you maybe get some inspiration, maybe get some food for thought, and then move on and hopefully apply it. And if you listen every Wednesday on Weight Loss Wednesday, maybe over the course of time, some of that will add up. My qualifications are a guy who's been fat since I was 5 or 6. My qualifications are a guy who never really lost weight ever, except there was one time in school where I went on this kick where I basically starved myself because I saw this other kid, Clarence, do it. And it worked well for him. And I think I lost around 30 pounds then, but I was miserable and felt horrible, and it didn't last long. And then, of course, like everybody else, I gained more weight than I lost back. And, on and on it went. So this is the first time in my life I've been successful, and I continue to be successful. My journey is now, I think I'm 14 months into the journey. I've lost 80 pounds, and it has been a journey. And I've learned some things along the way for myself, and I've learned some things from other people. Today we're going to talk about exercise. Now, not only have I lost the 80 pounds and counting, I have a lot more to lose. But I've also helped other people lose weight, and during that time, I've compiled a list of things that I see that work for me and work for others and seem to work well. And the exercise thing is a thing that you may disagree with or you may find surprising, but keep an open mind. What happens when let's talk about being overweight. People who are overweight have an issue with food. I don't think there can be any denying that. Now, is it a full-blown food addiction? Is it a psychological issue, emotional issue with food? Is it a educational issue where you just aren't educated about what to eat? Or is it probably a combination of all of those, with some of those being heavier for other people than others? And I think that the final one is probably true. But either way, when you have an issue with food, whether it be emotional, whether it be educational, whether it be intellectual, you have a problem with food. And the last thing you need to do when you're trying to lose weight is exacerbate that mental aspect, because the mental aspect is really 100% of the losing weight problem. Now, they'll tell you that it's the moving around problem, it's the getting the exercise problem. It's not. It's the mental problem, because your brain has, when you repeat something over and over and over and over, it becomes the way you do things, and your brain bucks change. It doesn't like change. Change doesn't feel right. Change feels wrong. It will make you very uncomfortable to the point that it's nearly impossible to change. None of us like change. There's a few people, I've met people that like to hop around and move every 6 months to a new place, but by and large, most people are not like that. Most people like to know their surroundings, if it's surroundings they like. Now, if you're miserable, you hate where you live, then you want to move. But for the most part, if it's something that's accommodating to you, the thought of packing up and moving every 6 months is horrendous. I mean, we don't like change. So it's mental. Well, when you have issues with food, you have triggers, things that send you off to trigger you to eat, whether they be emotional, whether they be intellectual, maybe they just be because of your circumstances or your surroundings or social settings. There's triggers, and hunger is a legitimate trigger, which makes it the worst trigger for food. When you're legitimately hungry, that is a legitimate trigger. It's not a false trigger, and it's going to make you eat. The problem is once you start eating, your issues with food will take over, and you will eat poorly, you will eat too much, you will eat too often. So, to start losing weight, you need to not exercise. Your body burns a remarkable amount of calories by doing nothing, and people don't realize this. You can actually determine what those are. There's several calculators out there that will allow you to determine exactly how many calories you burn if you don't do anything but just lay around in a chair all day. So you have something that's called a resting metabolic rate, a basal resting metabolic rate. That means it's what's your body doing when it's at rest. Now, it's going to vary slightly because nobody's the same, but it's close enough that anybody can use the calculator and determine about how many calories they're going to burn in a day. Let's say, for example, that you're 5 foot 8 inches tall, and I actually have one of these open. All you got to do is Google it. Just Google BMR calculator or basal metabolic rate calculator. There's many of them out there, and you can try several and see what they all say. Let's say you're 5 foot 8, and let's say you weigh 220, and let's say that you're 35 pounds and you're a female. So let's calculate that and see what the lovely basal metabolic rate tells us. You have a BMR of 1767. That means if you do nothing but sit in a recliner all day and then lay down and go to sleep in your bed at night, and you do that every day, you're going to burn 1,767 calories a day by doing nothing. So you want to lose weight? Well, you just consume less than 1,767 calories a day. Now, when you exercise, you're going to burn even more. So this metabolic rate is going to increase. So, the people that advocate exercise say, well, it's doing a couple things. It's helping your heart, has cardiovascular benefits, you're toning muscle mass, maybe increasing muscle mass, which is also going to increase your metabolic rate. And all these things are true. But what they fail to take into account is the adverse psychological aspect it has on you when genuine hunger kicks in, which triggers all of your bad associations with food to take over. So I found out that the number one thing that I could do for me and that has worked for people that I've worked with is let's try to do the best that we can to eliminate the hunger. Because once hunger happens, we have to interact with food. And once we have to interact with food, we're just going to make horrible decisions. Look, if you were making good decisions, you wouldn't have a weight problem. So obviously you make bad decisions, and I don't care what you say. Look, I can't tell you how many people I've worked with over the past year to try to help, who've asked for my help. And the one thing that I hear more than anything is I don't really eat all that bad. Look, I used to say the same thing. And I ate McDonald's cheeseburgers twice a day most days. And I'd be like, I eat cheeseburgers and fries a couple days, but really I don't eat all that. Yeah, you eat bad. You eat horrible. So you do. If you ate right, you wouldn't have a weight issue. And there's few exceptions. There's people who are on some medications, some steroids, for instance, and some other medications that will absolutely cause you to pretty much no matter what you do to have a weight problem. But when you take those people out and just leave everybody else, which is probably 99% of the population of the planet, the weight is because it's just the eating is wrong. So if we know that we're going to burn 1,767 calories just sitting like a lump on a log all day, what if we shot for eating 15 to 6, let's just say 16. Let's be very slight. Let's just say we decided to eat 1,600 calories a day. That'd be 167 calorie deficit, which means that if you did nothing, I mean absolutely nothing, every day, but sat in a chair all day and watched TV and then laid in bed and slept all night. That means over the course of 7 days, you would have a 1,169 calorie deficit. Let's extrapolate that out to a month for 4 weeks. 4,676. So about 1.33 pounds you would lose. You would have about 1.33 pounds in calorie deficits because around 3,500 calories is a pound. I know there's a lot of discussions about what that means, but it's just a ballpark. But for the month, you would have a 4,676 calorie deficit. That means how much you burned versus how much you ate. That would be the deficit. And that's only going from a 1,767 to saying I'm just going to eat 1,600 calories a day, sit like a lump on a log, and I'm going to lose a pound a month. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think that you could reduce your diet by 167 calories a day? Like literally, if you eat a cheeseburger and you eat some French fries, let's say you got a cheeseburger at McDonald's and you had French fries and you normally get a Coke. Well, there's any number of ways that you could chunk that 167 calories out of what you would normally eat. You could you could take the Coke out, have water. Actually, a little less than a whole Coke. You could keep the Coke, but you could cut your fries in around half. So go ahead and eat your burger and only eat around half the fries and have your Coke. Or take your burger and chop about a 1/6 triangle out of it. So you're taking 1/6 of it out, chop it out, throw it in your bag, smush it up so you won't be tempted to eat it, and then start there eating your burger with all your fries and your Coke. And so just that one act that day, you've eliminated those calories from your diet that day. The rest of the day, you just eat like you would normally eat. You would lose over a pound a month. That means at the end of the year, you'd be 12 pounds lighter. See, people don't like 12 pounds lighter, though. People are like, oh, it's only 12 pounds. Well, you didn't gain 50 pounds a year to become overweight. You probably gained 4 or 5 pounds a year. You might have gained 10 pounds a year. This is 12 pounds a year. If you did this for 3 years, you'd be 36 pounds lighter by doing nothing but taking 167 calories out of your diet less. Now, as your weight goes down, your metabolic resting rate goes down, so that would actually change a little bit, so that's not exactly true. But you get the point. So, what then happens when we keep our calorie intake at that level or with a slight reduction, a very moderate reduction, something that's very simple, and then you figure that you're walking around work today, you're walking around shopping, back and forth to the car, across parking lots, standing up, cooking stuff, you got to clean, all these little things add up, and it doesn't even have to be a lot. It's not you out jogging around the track and killing yourself. It's just you doing normal, everyday walking around activities, doing anything other than sitting in a recliner and sleeping in a bed. Anything above that will burn more calories than your resting metabolic rate. So let's say that it only reaches the magnitude of let's just be very slight. Let's say you swept the living room a little bit, you stood up a while cooking, you walked back and forth to your car, to work, to lunch, through your office, across a couple of parking lots while you were shopping, went to the mailbox. You just did very slight things. So for your whole day, it only adds up to 200 calories, and that's it. Only 200, which we know is a bit ridiculous, right? So we were already burning 4676 already from before, from just our slight reductions. If you'll recall that now, from just our slight reductions from that. And that was just from cutting 167 out. So that's the only calorie reduction we did, only very modest. And now we're burning 200 calories a day for a month. So that's 200 times 30. That's 6,000. We're going to add to that the 4676 from the very modest calorie reduction that we did every day. And bam, suddenly you're at a 10,676 calorie deficit for the month. So I'm going to divide that by 3,500. That's 3 pounds a month. It's nearly a pound a week. And you did nothing but find out your resting basal metabolic rate. You ate, in this case, 167 calories less. For everybody, that'd be different, because your height, your weight, and your age is going to vary that. But I'm just saying, take whatever your resting rate is, and let's just snip just a little bit off of it, just a small amount off of it in terms of calorie intake, so that we come under our resting metabolic rate. So that by resting, we're burning more calories than we're taking in. That's all I'm asking. So then you're just going to add normal everyday activities. You're not walking, you're not lifting weights, you're not running, you're not doing squats, you're not doing any of that crap. It's just everyday walking around, which are things that don't trigger food. If you go get on a treadmill, I promise you it's going to trigger a food in your brain. It's going to trigger hunger like you've never seen. However, walking across the parking lot from your car to Walmart to buy a Xbox game, there's nothing about that that's going to cause a dramatic food trigger. So do you understand the power of let's work on the food aspect, some reasonable calorie reduction, and then we don't trigger food unnecessarily. Now, after you do this for a while, you're going to lose weight. It's going to become hard to look. The more weight you lose, the slower it will come off. Because why? Because your basal resting metabolic rate is going down. Well, at some point, you're going to get close to a level where you're relatively healthier. And at some point, you do add in the exercise. For me, it was 12 months. I lost weight for 12 solid months. It was around 70 pounds, I think, 66 pounds, somewhere. So I lost around 66 pounds, never exercised once. I didn't hit a treadmill. I didn't walk. I didn't squat. I didn't do jack. But at the end of the year, I got a really firm grasp on the food issue. I don't have issues with food. It's not a problem for me. A year of doing something with good habits will completely transform you. Doing it for 2 weeks, you won't be all that transformed. Even doing it a couple of months, you're not going to be all that transformed. You do it for a year, your brain, your habits, the way you think about things, they transform. And so your issues with food that you had a year before aren't there anymore. So depending on how overweight you are and how severe your issues with food are is how long you should go before you start exercise. For me, it was about a year. It's about 60 pounds in a year, 65 pounds in a year. For somebody else, it may be 25 pounds in 6 months. And I don't know. That's something you're going to have to figure out unless you have somebody work with you that can figure it out for you. But it's not that hard. You just listen to your body. You see how your brain is thinking. You see how you're feeling. But you mark the exercise off the list. So, what can help with that? Well, for me, it was a product called Plexus. Plexus does numerous things. It takes sugar cravings away immediately. As a matter of fact, he might kill me for even mentioning this, but maybe not. I'm going to go see. Last week, I started talking to a guy named Mark. Mark wanted to lose some weight. And so I gave him my plan, worked with him, worked up even some of the stuff we're talking about now. I talked with him about. And then I checked in with him 3 days later, and he was like, man, I'm just not craving the crap anymore. My appetite's under control, but I specifically don't crave the sugar. If you're a sugar craver, a junk craver, a cola craver, a candy craver, a chocolate craver, Plexus is going to help with that in ways that you can't even possibly imagine. Okay? So that's one thing it does. Another thing it does is it has this process whereby endorphins are released into the brain and has a little process of that. This is all natural, by the way, completely healthy. But you're going to feel good, which will help with the emotional eating. It's kind of like, I use this, it's not exactly the same, but it's kind of the effect of as if you were on an antidepressant or something. It has similar properties. Of course, they're not the same. This is all natural and it's safe and there's no issues with it. But it just gives you a little lift, an emotional lift. So you don't have anxiety quite as much. You don't have the emotional eating problems. It also has this process whereby it triggers the liver to start doing something interesting where it sends more, a majority actually, of your energy levels, which, are carbohydrates, glucose, sugar, stuff like that. Rather than just sending it straight to fat cells, there's a switch happens and it starts sending it to muscle mass. Well, when you start sending stuff to muscles, what happens? Well, then you're going to increase muscles. When muscles increase, what happens? Well, your metabolic rate increases. Then what happens? Well, you're burning more calories doing nothing. The more muscle you have, the more calories you burn doing nothing. There's several different things that do. That's all I'm going to go into right now. But, curb the appetite is one of them just in general, in addition to the cravings. So all of that helps you so that when you made even moderate changes, you may even be able to make changes that are slightly more moderate. And when I say I didn't diet. I have my food logs on MyFitnessPal, which I highly recommend you use, and I'll probably devote a whole show to just MyFitnessPal. But I can show you what I ate that whole time. There'd be times where I would quit. When I had a really good grip on what I was eating and how much stuff calories were. Some days there was no point in me putting calories in because I could figure them in my head because I'd done it so many times. So I'd miss some days. But anytime I'd add something new to the mix and I'd wonder how it was going to figure out, I'd go in there and plug it in. So I'd know. So I can show you where I ate cheeseburgers and French fries and Philly cheesesteak sandwiches and fried chicken and mashed potatoes and I ate all that stuff. I ate it, but I just ate less of it. And part of it naturally happened, and then part of it was taking a little bit of control of it myself. One of the things that I would do is I'd go to MyFitnessPal in the morning, and I'd work out through the day what I probably wanted to eat. I most likely knew I was probably going to eat Wendy's or McDonald's. Like, I feel like McDonald's today. And of course, my favorite thing is the double quarter pounder with cheese. I'd go ahead and fill it in. Sometimes I do it the night before. I just go ahead and fill it in. We'd have all that. We'd have all that worked out in advance. And so what I would see is, man, I could eat this for lunch and I could eat this for dinner, but it's just going to put me about 350 calories over. Well, how can I fix that, but while still eating what I want to eat today? See, that's the key. If you're eating what you want to eat, you don't have mental issues with food. And so sometimes I would be like, God, if I only eat 75% of the fries and I chunk out about 1/6 of this burger when I first get it, just chunk out about 1/6 of it and toss it in the bag. And then I take this Coke that I got with it and, just pour half the Coke out and only leave half of it. Well, I'm eating my Coke and my cheeseburgers and my French fries like always. But at the end of the day, I'm at a calorie deficit. And so that's what I did. That was one of my keys to success. And it wasn't painful. I wasn't stressed about it. I didn't feel like I was being cheated. I mean, every day I would look back at what I ate the day before and I'd be like, holy crap, I had a double quarter pounder with cheese with fries and a Coke for lunch. And then for dinner, I had, pepperoni, sausage, and ham pizza from Domino's or something. And that was my dinner. And I'm like, holy cow, I'm eating the worst food ever and I'm losing weight. But how was I doing it? Well, obviously you can't do it by eating the same amount of food that you always ate, because if you eat people want this magic pill where, when I've talked to people and posted on Facebook about how I still ate the foods I loved and lost weight, people will assume in their brain for some reason that means that he ate all the calories he always ate and lost weight. Well, no. You can't eat all the calories that you always ate and lost weight. If you eat the same calories that you've always eaten, you're going to have the same weight problem. There's no pill that magically allows you to eat the exact same amount of calories yet lose weight, because your body it's a process. Your body is a machine and it works in a certain way. Calories in, energy expended, calories out, net positive or net minus is what you wind up with. So you can't cheat that. There's nothing that's going to cheat that. But you can fix the anxiety issues, the craving issues, the feeling of satiety, fullness, have a plan where you have a mathematical reduction, while at the same time you still consume the foods you love, but you do just a tad bit thinking about them in advance, where everything is regulated. And the next thing you know, the weight is coming off. You're eating the foods you like. You're starting to feel more and more amazing. And the more amazing you eat, the better you're going to eat. The better you eat, the more you're going to lose. The better you're going to feel, the better you're going to eat, which is what will take a person from being a cheeseburger, fry, Coke, pizza, mashed potato, biscuit, gravy eating maniac 14 months ago, and to where a year later they've switched over to being a mostly all raw food vegan. Now, how do you make that step? Well, it was a process. So I don't eat any meat now. I don't eat gravy. I don't eat fried foods. And I don't miss any of it. Look, I'm not going to get into this because it will confuse the issue. But just let me tell you, I eat a lot now. I eat more now than I ever ate before. I eat so much more food now, like I'm constantly cramming food down my throat all day long. But it ain't cheeseburgers, but I love it though. It's food I love. So I hope that gives you some food for thought. I'm going to end it with not just my opinion, but some scientific research on exercise. And this was from Sean M. Talbot. He's a PhD nutritional biochemist. He was the director of the University of Utah's Nutrition Clinic for over a decade. And this is what he has to say with his experience, studies, and what he's seen in that capacity. As a rule of thumb, weight loss is generally 75% diet or food you consume and 25% exertion, exercise, calorie burning, etc. An analysis of more than 700 weight loss studies found that people see the biggest short-term results when they eat smart. On average, people who dieted without exercising for 15 weeks lost 23 pounds. So listen to this. On average, people who dieted without any exercise for 15 weeks lost 23 pounds. The exercisers lost only 6 over about 21 weeks. So it was an extra 6 weeks that they tried it, and they only lost 6. Okay? I don't know what else to say. That's pretty compelling evidence. Sean M. Tablet, PhD's final conclusion is it's much easier to cut calories than it is to burn them off. Here's an example. He says, if you eat a fast food steak quesadilla, which can pack over 500 calories, you need to run more than 4 miles to undo it. So you're going to have to do something to undo it. So going back to what I said, I would still eat the steak quesadilla from the fast food place. I would just map my calories out on my FitnessPal throughout the day and know where I was at and what I needed to do. And it may be that I only could eat 60% of it or 50% of it or 75% of it. It may be that I needed to chop 25% of that quesadilla out, and then later in the day, something I was planning to eat, chop 25% of it out. So I was getting 75% of my quesadilla lunch, and I was getting 75% of my whatever dinner I had planned. So I was still eating the foods I loved, and in nice portions. When you're only cutting 25% out, the portions are still nice. You don't look like you're starving yourself. And bam, at the end of the day, you have a net calorie deficit. So that's about all I have to say. You have my opinion. You have my year of actual results. And we have the advice of an actual expert who's highly qualified in this area. So try to implement those ideas into your plan to lose weight. The basal metabolic rate calculators, you can just Google those. They're everywhere, free to use. MyFitnessPal, where you track your calories, is free to use. All you have to do is go to myfitnesspal.com. And then if you want to find out about Plexus, which I highly recommend incorporating into your plan because it's going to take your success to levels you never dreamed possible, you can find that at my website, losewithmason.com. Losewithmason.com, losewithmason.com. I had so much fun on my first ever episode of Weight Loss Wednesday. I hope you learned something. And there's a contact form at losewithmason.com. And I highly encourage you to hit me up on there. If you have questions, you can send me a message and I'll reply to it. You can schedule a phone consultation. And you can always find me on Facebook. Just look for Brett Mason, BRETTMASON. You probably already know it because that's probably how you found this episode. And we'll talk more about weight next week. Tomorrow is Politics Thursday on the podcast. We're going to get off all into the deep end tomorrow with the IRS cracking down on churches. I know that'll interest some people. That's on tomorrow's podcast. It'll be released around 10 a.m. You can watch for that on my Facebook page, and I will see you then.
Thanks for listening to Weight Loss Wednesday. Make sure you look for tomorrow's podcast, Political Talk Thursday. The latest news, guests, and serious discussion about politics today.
Bye.